Good morning and welcome to the Thriving Naturally Goddess series. Today we are talking with Caroline. She is a very experienced practitioner and is passionate about sharing her knowledge with others. After studying and graduating with a diploma in naturopathic nutritional therapy, she set up her practice and helped launch the Naturopathic Nutrition Association. The Practitioner Association is for those who practice in accordance with naturopathic principles. She was a chair of the NNA for 7 years and now leads the college accreditation team. She also became owner, principal, and senior tutor of the Natural Healthcare College in 2013, helping to nurture the next generation of naturopathic nutritional therapists for 5 years. She qualified as a naturopath in 2014. Iridologist, is this the one that works with the eyes? Oh, wow. Wow. In 2016, and well-being coach in 2018. She continues to develop her knowledge with a particular interest in gut health and psychological health.
Yeah, psychosocial skills, looking after our mental well-being as well.
Psychosocial health. Thank you. I think that's really needed right now with COVID and everything. And then, go for it. What are you going to say?
No, that wasn't me.
Oh, sorry. And then naturopaths have always said health starts in the gut, and science is finally catching up. Caroline's mission is to support and empower individuals and employees to optimize their health with a strong emphasis on digestive gut health, IBS and IBD, helping you live a happier, healthier, more active life. Thank you so much for being here with us, Caroline. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for asking me, Anastasia. And I really like being able to sort of share my knowledge and help other people. So I was really pleased to be invited to do this with you.
Absolutely. Well, I know we've been talking, and this topic that you told me has been kind of like on your heart and something that you really want to get out there is sort of myths around acid reflux and what it actually means. Can you share a little bit with us about that?
Yeah, I mean, so many people today sort of seem to think they've got too much acid. We talk a lot about acid reflux or heartburn, and many people are either on prescribed medication or they're going along getting over-the-counter medication to lower stomach acid because they need to get some relief from the symptoms they're experiencing. But through my training all those years ago and in all my years of experience with my clients, not always, but most of the time, what I usually find is that people actually don't have enough stomach acid. They actually probably need more stomach acid. And so that's a little bit difficult for people to often to understand, because if you've got a feeling of stomach acid, how can I surely not have enough? And surely I need to lower it. And that takes a little bit of conversation to explain to people why that is the case. And of course, a knock-on effect of lowering stomach acid too much, it has a knock-on effect not only through the rest of the digestive tract, but affects our health in many ways as well.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the knock-on effect that it has?
Yeah. So because the digestion really starts with the chewing action, and the next place it goes to is our stomach, which is really high up. People often think their stomach is a lot lower down. And the food sits there for 2 hours, maybe 3 hours to be digested. It's the first proper stage of protein digestion. Food gets churned up. When food leaves the stomach and moves into the small intestines, the acidity of the contents actually triggers the next phase of digestion. So it triggers the release of bile from the gallbladder and digestive enzymes from the pancreas to start the breakdown of food even further into its sort of smallest components to be absorbed into the bloodstream. So if you don't have enough stomach acid, it can hinder the release of other digestive secretions. So it has a knock-on effect in digestion. And then further down in the gut and the digestive tract, it can then start to have implications with the gut bacteria, with bowel movements, constipation, and things like that. And it has a knock-on effect outside of the gut, because we need acidity in the stomach for the effective absorption of our minerals like calcium and iron, and also for effective absorption of B12. So, it does have a lot of knock-on effects in different areas if we actually don't have enough acid.
Wow, that's so wild, because I'm listening to you talk. I know. And like B12, especially living in like high altitude, usually people are like, you need more B12, just take B12 vitamins and all of this stuff. But can you tell us how do we begin to differentiate between not having enough stomach acid and maybe having too much? Or can you look at it like that?
It can be difficult, but I get my clients to do it's quite a sort of a naturopathic test. We can't, well, I'm in Europe, I'm in England, we can't say over here that we can diagnose, but we can certainly get people to carry out a simple test, which we do first thing in the morning, before we've eaten, before we've drunk, by using just a quarter of a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda with a sort of 200 milliliter glass of sort of tepid water, not ice cold, but tepid water, and drink it, and timing how long it takes to burp, which seems like a really odd thing to do, but it's the interaction of the bicarbonate with the acid in the stomach that creates the chemical reaction, creates wanting to burp. And the lower the stomach acid naturally is, the longer it can take people to actually burp. So I get my clients to do that little test and to repeat it on more than one day, because you want to see if you're getting consistent results from doing that. Very often I get clients coming back to me and saying, well, I didn't burp for 20 minutes. Or it took, if it's taking more than 2 minutes, there's a potential sign that actually you're probably a bit low, or indeed very low, in natural stomach acidity. And so that's what I ask people to do. And from there, I work with clients from there to help them to correct it.
Wow, that's such a fascinating, simple at-home
It's such
test.
a simple thing you can do. A lot of people, if they bake, they've got bicarbonate of soda in the house. So it's a really, really simple thing people can do. It's a bit of fun, especially if you've got children. You can have a little bit of fun with it, because you're burping and all of that. But it's a bit of an eye-opener for people to do that. And as I said, it's best to repeat it a few times. And if you do take things, if you are on medication, then it's best probably to come off the medication, only for a couple of days or so, to give your body a chance to make it more accurate, really. If you're on things to lower stomach acid, just stop it maybe for a couple of days.
Yeah. And I guess I would just want to add the disclaimer that if people really want to try this test, and you are on a lot of medication, probably best to work with Caroline or someone
it is always best, because sometimes people are not quite sure on the results and what it might mean and things like that. It is best to work with a practitioner to help guide what to do.
But so fascinating. Well, I guess like the next question I would have is, so then it seems we can do this simple at-home test, but it almost seems as if the symptomatology, those experiences that we have within our body when it comes to acid reflux, be it too much or too little, the symptomatology seems to be the same. And can you tell us a little bit, one, what that symptomatology is and why it's so similar?
Because it seems really bizarre. How on earth can, if I'm low on stomach acid, how on earth can therefore a bit of acid reflux? I mean, I'm low. Surely I've got too much. It just, that seems like common sense. What I start to explain to people, first of all, is that when you're feeling acid reflux, the esophagus, the tube that runs from the mouth, from the throat down to the stomach, is not designed to have any acid in it at all. That's the first thing to understand. So it only takes the minutest amount of acid to escape back up into this tube, the esophagus, for it to create sort of a burning sensation and discomfort. That's the first thing to understand. It doesn't mean that actually in the stomach itself there is so much acid, there's too much. It just means that there may be a little bit of acid for what I'm going to explain is just escaped back up into the esophagus. And so you get this sensation of acid reflux, but it doesn't mean you've got so much acid in the stomach, and that's why it's coming back up. So that's the first thing to explain. The next thing is what seems to happen is when we've got enough stomach acid, it encourages the movement of the food to go down in the stomach and to encourage the opening of the pyloric sphincter, the muscle at the bottom of the stomach, to open into the small intestines, into the duodenum. And if there's not enough acid, the food can start to rise back up, and it might and then we can start to get some fermentation going on in the stomach. When there's not enough acid, food can start to ferment and create gas, and it can allow the sphincter, the lower esophageal sphincter, this muscle at the top of the stomach, to just open a little bit and allow a little bit of acid to escape back into the esophagus. And so it just means everything's moving sort of in the wrong direction. There's just not quite enough acid to digest the food. Doesn't mean you haven't got any acid, there's just not quite enough. And it can just cause this little sphincter muscle at the top of the stomach to allow a little bit of acid to escape back into the esophagus. And that's why it can seem like there's too much. Now, I do have to say that it doesn't always mean that you haven't got enough. Sometimes people genuinely may have too much, but usually it seems to be that more commonly people don't have enough acid rather than too much, in my experience.
I see. And can you share with us, especially like in your clinical practice, why do you think it's becoming more and more common not to be producing enough stomach acid?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think in our modern lifestyles, everyone's quite stressed, aren't they? Everyone's busy and rushing here, there, and everywhere. And, everyone's got lots of worries and lots of stress. This year can be worse than others, but people often have lots of different stresses or working hard. And now when we're designed to experience stress, but we're not designed to be eating when we're feeling stressed, as you know. So we have the two arms of our autonomic nervous system. We have our the stress response, the sympathetic. So when we're stressed, we're not designed to be digesting food. The other arm of it, known as the parasympathetic, is also known as the rest and digest phase. Now, when we're feeling a little bit of stress, we may not even really notice that we're stressed because we're so used to living in this way of being a bit hyper and stressed. When we're feeling like that, the body is saying, well, I'm not supposed to be digesting food right now. I'm supposed to be, running away from the tiger or fighting, that stress fight or flight response. So it can hinder digestive secretions. And so if it hinders, that's why we may be low on stomach acid, is just that we're just rushing around, a little bit stressed, we're not eating in a relaxed fashion, and it's hindering those digestive secretions, hence the acid release into the stomach, which is partly triggered when we start eating, that we get more acid that should be released when food arrives in the stomach.
I think you're so right, and I think you bring up such a valid point. And when I was listening to you talk, it made me think, it's like, well, for our listeners, it's like, well, I'm not eating and running from a tiger. Like, what are you talking about? But when I was listening to you, it was like, but what about if you're eating and you're watching an action movie? It's like, I don't think our bodies or our mind can differentiate from a real or a fake tiger. And even here in the US, I don't know about the UK, but there used to be like cinemas where it was like a dine and eat, or like a dine and watch. So you would, like, that was the whole thing.
Do both at the same time. People very commonly sit in front of the TV when they're eating their meals now, don't they? Mm-hmm. And spend their time just watching TV without really thinking about eating at all, Yeah.
So I think that practice would definitely put us in this trajectory of not being able to digest our food, and then going into this cycle of not having enough stomach acid, but having the symptomatology that would be interpreted that maybe you'd have too much. So
Yes.
I don't know, can you share with us maybe some simple at-home remedies that if you are experiencing kind of like this acid reflux, what are some things that you can do to just kind of get a little bit of relief?
Yeah. So the first thing is, particularly if we're saying that actually it's probably due to having not enough acid to digest the food, it's just taking a step back and trying to eat how we used to in the old days, of eating a bit more mindfully, sitting down at a table and taking a bit of time, even taking, I often say to people, take a few deep breaths, to just calm the body down. And almost the smelling, the sight, the smell of food, it is actually the very first stage of digestion. There's the vagus nerve, and it's telling the brain, that then tells the stomach that, oh, food is on its way. We need to start releasing digestive secretions, stomach acid, and we need that acid, gastric secretions in the stomach. So just slowing everything down, sit at a table, focus on the meal, and eat mindfully, eat slowly. Chew your food well. When my children were little, I used to say to them that your stomach doesn't have teeth. So we have teeth for a reason, and the teeth are there to be chewing food. And often these days, we're supposed to eat a lot of vegetables, and I'm sure you'll have other people talking to you about the importance of fiber and vegetables. But, a lot of food these days doesn't actually need a lot of chewing. We need to be eating more fiber, but we should go through the motions of chewing our food, and before we swallow it, not just like gulping it down really quickly. Just slow everything down, take the time, focus on the meal. This mindfulness over eating helps the body to recognize that food is coming to the stomach, which gets there really quickly, and to release gastric secretions. So that's the really important first step that so many people overlook. And not so much this year with people working from home, but before, people were rushing around, or meetings, or driving to meetings, or sitting at their desk, at lunch hour in an office, and doing their emails and eating at the same time. We need to have a pause. We need to separate other activities from when we're eating, and just respect the fact that we're eating. And it's a very important activity just to help the body with its digestion.
I think that's so well said, and I think it's a message that we really need to hear. And I mean, I have to say, I'm guilty of it. I'm interviewing all of you guys, and then I'm like, but I have to work, and I have to take care of a baby.
Yeah, we all do it. We all do it from time to time. But it's important every so often just to remind yourself and to recognize, isn't it? And it's like setting new habits. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to keep reminding yourself. It's like if you're used to eating food really quickly, you almost need something there to say, slow down, chew food. Just go, oh, I'm eating too quickly. Let's just slow it all down, so to try and set in the consciousness, that you need to have a new way of eating most of the time. Of course, we're not going to achieve it all of the time, but if we can do it most of the time, it'd be helpful.
Do you have like a little tool that you often, like a little simple tool that you often give your clients about just how to re-engage with being mindful while they're eating, or how to almost like force that pause while chewing? Do you have?
Well, I guess I think the first thing is, I don't actually have a tool. It's a very good point, and maybe I should think of a tool. But I think the first thing is just getting people to sit at a table, because a lot of people don't do that these days, and just trying to think about separating the eating from other activities. But the idea of having a tool actually is a good one. Yeah, I don't know if that's something you thought about at all.
No, it was just while I was listening to you, I was like, I wonder
Yeah.
if, because I'm sure, I love the idea. I think, yeah, if we were just able to sit at the table, like that could be enough to just like force us to, and then like you said, take a couple deep breaths, just look at
Deep
your
breaths
meal,
is the first
enjoy
one,
it,
definitely.
and maybe that would be enough. Yeah.
just to slow it all down.
Yeah.
The other thing I recommend to people is about fluid intake. It's funny, when I first started my training a long time ago now, we were sort of at that point where we said, oh, you shouldn't drink any fluid with a meal at all. And in my training, that, that sort of changed and evolved to sort of say, yeah, we need to have some fluid. In Chinese medicine, we talk about, they talk about having, hello, they talk about having a soupy consistency in the stomach. So we do need to have some fluid, but it's really important that we don't think, oh, now I'm eating, I need to drink gallons of water. We need to be a little bit mindful again that we sip water, a small glass of water, but we don't dilute all our digestive secretions too much by drinking too much fluid with a meal. That's not particularly helpful.
That's so good to hear. I think, yeah, it's so easy for us to just focus on eating and forget about having some sort of beverage like water. Or what would you recommend to have with a meal? Like
just still water. We don't really want fizzy water. Just ideally just still water. You don't want to be drinking tea and coffee with the meal because they can interfere with digestive secretions as well. So just a small glass of water, unless there's a special occasion and you've got a glass of wine or something, but most of the time it's just a glass of water is the right thing to do. Yeah.
And then I guess another question is, because I see it come up a lot on like the social media platforms in groups that are around like acid reflux and gastritis and things like this. But they talk a lot about apple cider vinegar. And can you tell us?
I can, definitely. That was going to be the next thing I was going to say. Apple cider vinegar, or actually lemon juice. So sometimes, or as we've just said about having to increase acidity in the stomach, you just want to increase it a little bit. And apple cider vinegar and lemon juice are both really acidic, but in a gentle way. And often I see people are given the wrong advice actually with regards to that. So the best thing to do is to start with, I would say, 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar or lemon juice in the same amount of water. So if it's 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar with 2 teaspoons of water, or 2 teaspoons of lemon juice with 2 teaspoons of water, and to drink that just before you start eating. And provided that doesn't create any discomfort in the stomach, which can be a sign of an irritated stomach lining, which is separate. That doesn't mean you haven't got enough stomach acid, but that's a separate thing. But provided that's all fine, that can actually just help to increase acidity in the stomach a little bit and help with the digestion, definitely. But it's making sure it's the right amount, because sometimes I see people are told to do a little bit of apple cider vinegar in a whole glass of water, and it's the wrong ratio. It should be the same amount, just a little bit of each of the apple cider vinegar and water. If that helps, sometimes I say to people, well, maybe do a dessert spoon of each, but start with a smaller amount to start with. And that may be all that's needed. Sometimes we need additional help, but they're great self-help things that are safe to do on your own.
Absolutely. And I guess just one question, just to clarify for everyone, is, do you need to be careful about interactions with other pharmaceutical drugs when you take the apple cider vinegar or the lemon, or is it completely safe?
That's very, very safe to do that. I mean, obviously, if somebody's on prescribed proton pump inhibitors or other things to lower stomach acid, you should discuss that with your doctor about, can I just stop this? Can I try this to see if this helps in a different way? But it doesn't, with other medications, it doesn't have any interaction. It is safe to do that. Yeah.
And then are there any other at-home remedies that you would suggest, or any other simple recommendations?
Those are the 2 main things, well, the 3 main things. Obviously, the fluid intake, watching that's not too diluted. Very important about the mindful eating. There's a lot to think about there. and just the simple apple cider vinegar or lemon juice are the main things that I think are easily done and safely done by somebody at home if they're just doing it on their own without additional support from a practitioner to help them along the way. Oh, sorry, I should just say one more thing. Actually, sorry, there is another thing. You can eat some bitter food is the other thing I should say. So things like rocket, arugula, I think we call it rocket. Bitter foods are very good. You can sometimes buy herbal bitters, but that's a way, because that stimulates the gastric secretions. So often starting a meal with something like that can be helpful as well, just to help stimulate the gastric secretions.
I think that's such a great point too, because bitters are so they're just not common in our diet over here in the United States. I know
not well known anymore at all.
Yeah. So
very useful.
They're so good. But they really are. Well, thank you so much, Caroline. It's been so great to have you. And before I let you go, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with? Any last words or anything like that?
Well, shall I mention the offer that I was?
Sure. I think that would be great.
For your listeners. So, I do various programs that are on my website, different offers and programs. But I do one that's what I call a 30-day reset program to work with individuals over the course of a month to really help to sort of re-engage new habits, new healthy eating habits, just to get things back on track, because it's very easy to get off track, help people get back on track and set new good habits. And I'm in the UK, but it's in pounds sterling, but I'm offering £50 off that through the month of to the end of January, that offer. So instead of £249, it's £199, and I think you'll be providing a link for that when this goes out.
Yeah, we'll have that link in the email, so everyone can just follow it if they're really interested. And
obviously I do things on Zoom. I'm in the UK, so I'm used to working with clients on Zoom, and it's worked very well this year through all the different lockdowns and things that we've had. So doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. And then they can have that fun little test and find out if they have low stomach acid or all of this stuff and be like super supported.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline. It's been so great to have you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And absolutely. Well, it's obviously time for you to go.
Thank you very much. Take care.